Hey, welcome to another episode of Mama's
Beyond
the
the
Matrix.
Matrix.
It's another Friday, and today we are going to be talking about schools. That is a hot topic. Schools is it's a big thing. It can be challenging. It's a little bit more leg work or footwork than we're probably used to from our home countries. So, yeah, we just want to kind of tell you guys about that, what to expect, the different types of options for schooling for your children, and just give you some information that we have had experience with and knowledge of,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So, let's just go ahead and jump into it. My name is Kelly, for those of you who may be new, and this is.
I'm Jay.
Yes, and we are mothers who have relocated with our families from the United States to Medellín, Colombia. Jay spent 3 years in Mexico before coming to Medellín.
Mm-hmm.
And I came straight from the States to Medellín after doing a scouting trip and feeling like this was a good place for us to land. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have both had experiences putting our children in schools, but different types of schools.
Yes.
Jay's children are still in preschool, correct?
Very young. I have toddlers, and they are in the toddler stage. I have a 3-year-old. I have a 2-year-old, soon to be 4 and 3. And so we have them in what we consider here the La Jardín, which is the daycare or Montessori school here. And so it's a little different perspective with getting children to the littler children into the schools as opposed to your traditional grade schools. And so with that, we can get right on in and get into what does that look like. So when you get to a city like Medellin here, you want to map out your area, and we have some other videos for that, and get your footing and kind of find out what area you want to be in. With that, you also want to then look for schools. And so what a lot of people do is, if you know people who are already in the city, you can call around and find out, hey, where are some schools that are around your neighborhood? Or you just walk around and you find something that works for you. And we actually have been very privileged, my family, to find 2 schools. We loved the first school that we had our children in. We ended up moving not far, about 10 to 12 minutes away from where the other school is, to another area. But now we have our children in another school, which is about 3 minutes away from where we live. And so with that, enrolling them in school, you have to be mindful when you are communicating a lot with these professionals who work in these daycares, who work in these schools. Their primary language is Spanish.
Yes.
So it's going to take a lot more out of you as an expat living in a city like this, communicating your business affairs. And one of them is getting your children into school. So just be patient and be mindful. They are very welcoming, and they're happy to work with you, but it may require you using your translation device of a Google Translate or whatever translator you have, or having somebody to come with you to help you understand if Spanish is not your native language and you don't know Spanish that well, because a lot of what you're going to be talking about is it's expounded on the basic Spanish language. So with that, and understanding you'll need to be speaking mostly in Spanish or writing mostly in Spanish, you want to see if this is a good fit for you. You want to see if the area, the location is a good fit for you. You want to see if the teacher and the student ratio is a good fit for you. You want to see if the meal plan is a good fit for you. If the cost is going to be a good fit for you with getting your children into schools. And so with that, one of the things that we've experienced in both of the schools that we had our children in for daycare was that there is an annual fee. And that annual fee is like a registration fee to just get them into the school. And that's usually, for us, it was around $50 to $65 per child. We have 2. So everything is going to be double for us. Not only that, you have your cost of tuition, and then you also have your uniforms and your materials, because that may not be included in the cost of what it takes for you to get your children into school. So I'll start with the uniforms. The uniforms, they're so cute, y'all. Mm-hmm. They so cute. They have them decked out with their collar polos and their, I wish I had a uniform to show you, but they're kind of like windbreaker like pants, and that's normal here in because the weather here is very spring like year round. So it's pretty much light clothing, but they also come with a jacket. And so you have two sets of uniforms that the school would typically provide to you. They'll do the measuring of the uniforms and so on and so forth. And with that, we'll go into materials. So the materials outside of tuition, the materials you will also need to pay for separately. So any books, any projects, anything that you're working on with your students in terms of the academic side is going to be separate from the tuition. I think our books cost us about no, that's not right. I want to say our books cost us around $30 each book for the year for our children, as well as the uniforms were about $65, and that was for two sets, and that included a polo shirt, a regular t-shirt, a pair of shorts, a pair of pants, and a nice size quality jacket to go with the children. So, excuse me, it wasn't 65, it was 85. It was 85 for two sets of uniforms per child. So that's four uniforms sets that we have, and it was 85 each for each child. The tuition. The tuition cost for our children, I have to pull out my converter for the tuition conversion. So give me just a second while I do that, because our tuition is like 1.2 mil pesos a child.
Per child, okay.
Per child each month. And I want to do the conversion to give you the right amount on that and not just gauge it.
And while she's doing that, keep in mind that she's referring to a private preschool, which is meaning she's paying for it. Yes. However, they do have some free programs for preschool, and you may want to get into that after you finish.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, that was not per child. That was for both of our kids.
Okay.
So that's about $320 a month for both of our children, and the schedule. So you also want to understand the schedule. And yes, I did say $320 for both of our children, and they go to school from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The typical day, you can do a half a day schedule or you can do a full day schedule with the daycares, from what I found. And so the half a day would be anywhere from 7 in the morning to 12 o'clock, or 8 in the morning to 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Or you can do the full day, which is anywhere from 8 to 6. I choose to pick my girls up at 4 o'clock, so they're there from 8 to 4, and that's the cost that we pay for our children to be in school from 8 to 4. It includes their meals. We do breakfast at home. If we wanted to do breakfast at the school, that'd be additional cost, and if we wanted to add in additional snacks, that would be additional cost. But we do breakfast at home. I do breakfast at home with my children every morning. That's just something, that's a value that we have in our home. So we don't pay that cost, and I send them with snacks. They also get snacks at school, but that would be the cost of food for and their tuition each month. What else am I missing? I said the uniforms, the books, the tuition. And one of the things here is that is really important is understanding the school schedule. So there's a schedule A and there's a schedule B, and I'll let you tap into that a little bit.
Okay. So the schedule A is basically the traditional Colombian schedule for their schools. Mm-hmm. That goes from January, and then the kids don't get out until November. They do have a couple breaks in between. So for example, my kids are now on the A schedule. So they have a break this month, which is June. Well, no, sorry. They'll have a break in May. So part of May until, no, that's not right. They're going to have a break in June. I was right the first time.
Yes.
So they'll have a break in June for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And then come back at the beginning of July. So that's a little break. And then they had like a week off for the Easter break, the week of Easter. And so they have a few breaks in between there, but they do go from January, and then they end the school year in November. The B schedule, which is our traditional U.S. schedule, yep, where they go from maybe like August until June, or May or June, something like that, depending on the schools. Mm-hmm. So there are two different schedules. You have to think about what is going to work best for you and your family.
Now, with that schedule, they go till June. They have a break, like a traditional summer break, like we're used to in the United States, and then they pick back up in, is it August?
Yes,
August.
in August. Yeah. So just before I go into my experience, because I have older children, talk about the daycares, the program that you refer to where they have a free program, because everybody may not be able to pay for daycare.
Yes.
But talk about that, and then how do people qualify? Is it something for anybody, or is it just for people who are Colombian? Can you give some information?
Yes, I can give some information on that. So also, one of the cool things about this city is they do provide free childcare if you choose to go that route. The way that the way that our schools are set up here is you're usually enrolling your children, because it's a Schedule A for the daycares. You're usually enrolling them toward the end of the year. So December and January timeframe is the time to enroll your children into a traditional daycare. And they do have programs, and I'm going to link the name of the program in the description. But the program is a government program, and it's designed to help families with childcare, daycare. There is not, and I probably asked this question like 10 times, Kelly, like, because I just couldn't believe it. Being an American, I could not believe this. The question that I asked was, is there an income cap? Who is this program designed for? Is it for single moms? Do you have to make a certain amount of money? And the answer was no. The answer was no. And the answer was no. Each time I asked, you don't have to be a single mother. You can be married. You don't have to be within a certain income bracket. You can make this much money. You can make this much money. It's offered to you. And the way the program works, you sign up, and it's a full day program as well. So the kids will go typically from 8 to 4, or somewhere between 7 and 6, or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening. And it also includes lunch. So this program is not only free, but it also includes lunch. Now, speaking with some of the locals here, I have found that some of them may not choose to put their children in those types of daycares for various reasons, but the education that they get is really good. The system is set up so that families all around the city could have another option. And this is a hub, and we'll link it in the description again, but this is not just in one certain area of the neighborhood. These schools, these daycares, are all over the city. They have them, and the link will show you each location in the city. And they do a lot of activities with the children. It's like a traditional school, maybe close to a Montessori type of curriculum. And that's another thing, you want to find out what type of curriculum the schools are using, because you'll have Waldorf schools, you'll have some, for lack of words, discovery school, where they're out in the nature a lot. And exploring. I don't remember the name of those type of schools. And then you have like your Montessori schools, and then you have your typical regular daycares where they have their own curriculum that is original to that school. So these are questions that you're going to want to ask, especially if you are interested in a particular type of curriculum. But these schools, they're all over the city. They're all over the city of Medellín and the outskirts of Medellín. I do not know if transportation is included with this. I don't believe transportation is included. Usually they are in certain areas in the city that are walkable to certain neighborhoods, but there are several in the city. And so we'll link that again in the description on how you can get a free daycare. And it is offered to expat families. It is offered to foreigners. They don't discriminate on foreigners as well. There are certain documents that you do need to submit, and usually it would pertain to visa requirements, how long you're planning to be here. But these type of schools are not exclusive to just the Colombian community. They are open to expat families.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. All right, so my children are just a little bit older. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old now, and I have experience putting them both in private school and in a public school here in Colombia. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both. But first, let's go over the different types of schools they have here in general for children outside of the preschools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have your international schools. So those would be schools that are created. So let's just say a British school that is established here in Colombia, or a French school. That those types of schools would be international schools. Then we have our bilingual schools. So bilingual schools would be regular Colombian schools. They would be private, and they could be religious based. They could not be. However, they teach in both English and Spanish for the most part. There are some schools that may provide other languages. However, that's pretty much what you're going to find. And those, again, are typically private schools. They do have bilingual public schools, but there aren't many of them, and it's difficult to get in. So because there aren't many of them, and there is a large population of Colombian people who want their children to learn English, and then you have a large population of families who have kids that speak English and need to be in that type of school. So it's not necessarily a lot of room when it's a public school. So I'll get into that a little bit more. Then we have your traditional, just your Colombian traditional schools, whether they're public or private. They could be, I think a lot of times the traditional private schools are religious based. Some type of, they're going to be Catholic or Christian, some type. Now, it depends on how strong or how much they are teaching as far as that religion. Some schools are like, yes, they're religious based and they do their prayers and do different things, but they don't force anything on children. But some actually like try to indoctrinate and, put it in. But this is a Catholic country. So,
Catholic.
That's pretty much normal for a traditional Colombian person because they're already Catholic anyway. So that's not a big deal for them. Public is going to also have a little bit of the religious aspect, not as much. They do still do prayer, but it's not too heavy in the public schools. And public schools are free. Okay, so let me just get into it. I just kind of gave you a rundown of the different types of schools. The experience I have is with a private school. That's the first school I put the kids in. Private school that was Christian based. The owners were actually from the States, and they have a school here that's a K through 12 school for the children. Now, that school, in order to enroll them, and again, this was the first school they ever went to here in Colombia or in Medellín, I had to register with the government to let the government know that they were in school. So there's a website I had to go to, enter their information. They had to get a number so that they are actually established and solidified with the government, and the government knows, hey, we have these children here in our schools, yada yada, and they're tracking their progress and all of that. So that was something I had to do. Then there was a list of paperwork I had to turn in to the school. The school records from the States. I had to have my financial records. They asked information about my religious background because it was a religious school. Just a lot of different paperwork, but they had to have a psychological evaluation. They had to interview us by a committee from the school before they can say whether or not it was okay for the kids to go there. So it was really in depth, and this is typical for private schools. Very typical. You're going to go through a process. A lot of the private schools even have a wait list. So you will see or hear people, the Colombian people say, hey, if they want their children in a certain school, they have to try to get in when that child is a baby to get on the wait list in order for them to be able to even go to that school when it's time for them to go to school. So those are things that happen and you have to be aware of, pay attention to. You can't just go up to the school and say, hey, you have an opening. Can I put my kid in? It does not necessarily work like that. Another just tidbit, just to take a step back. You can't really just go online and find schools. Some schools may have a website. Some schools may not. Even if they have a website, that does not mean they're going to respond to your email or your form submission. They're probably not. The best way is to call them. And if you can get them on the phone, set up an appointment to view the school, because that's what you're going to have to do anyway. You set up an appointment, go view the school. They'll give you a tour, give you all the information about the school. Now, when the schools have open enrollment, during those times, they will have set schedules and a whole process you need to follow. And those processes could be different. One school wanted me to go through WhatsApp to do everything. They notified you. The whole process was through WhatsApp.
Okay.
And so that was something I wasn't used to, but had to navigate. Another school, I was able to just send them a message, and I was able to I'll go to one of their open enrollment sessions. So that's when they brought different families in at different days and times, and you can get all of the information you needed and the tours and all of that. Some you do individually. You can go, make an appointment, or maybe have to walk up to the school. If you can't get an appointment on the phone or email, it is real that you may have to walk up to a school and ask if you can talk to someone, whether they're available to give you a tour, give you information then, or they may make an appointment for you to come back at another time. It happens that way.
I found that doing business here in general is better face to face anyway. And a lot more people, you reach out to them. There's not a whole lot of emailing, they'll talk to you on WhatsApp. I mean, for several different business purposes, but it's mostly, hey, when can we get you in person to talk? And that's usually, I've found here at the culture, how they handle most of the business.
Yeah, it's a very relationship oriented culture. So about who you know, how they feel about you, that's how they're making decisions. And that's just kind of how it is. And that's something you have to adjust to. If you're coming from a culture that's not like that, like we are coming from the United States, everything is convenient. You can just do everything online. You don't even really have to pick up a phone and it's done, right? So it's not like that here. That is something you would have to get adjusted to. So I kind of gave you a gist of the process as far as getting into or trying to contact the school and what you need to go through. Okay. So the paperwork, the interviews, all of the things. So you do need to start early. This is something you probably want to start. If you make a decision to move to the city, you probably want to start that as soon as possible so that you know when you can get your child into school. Now, the private school that I put them in, we had a same as Jay's mentioned, we had an annual fee that I had to pay for both children. Then I had a monthly tuition for both children. Now, for me, I had to pay for, their materials, their uniforms, which their books. It was quite a few books. Again, I feel like I enrolled my kids in college. As many things I had to get them as far as the school supplies, the books, the uniforms. It was a very extensive at the school that they were in. Very extensive. I don't even think I had to buy that many school supplies in the States. It's in regards to what they were asking. Again, every school is different.
In the States, were they in public or private school?
They were in public school in the States. Okay. But again, each school is different. So each school is going to have their different requirements. This is just my experience with this one school. So that was a lot. And then on top of that, I was paying for, so I said the annual fee, the monthly tuition. Then I had transportation for the two children. Back and forth to school. You have to pay for their meals. So you can get lunch only, or you can get breakfast and lunch and a snack. It was different price points. If they have extracurricular activities, so their tutoring, their Spanish classes, their sports, anything they were doing out after school was another fee. It was another fee. So it added up. That particular school, it definitely added up to the point to where I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. And I became unsatisfied with the cost and what they were expecting from me. I was feeling like I should have gotten more for the amount of money I was paying. That was just my opinion, right? But that gives you an idea of the private schools and kind of what you would need to go through in order to get your child in a private school. You do need to visit multiple schools. Don't just think it's going to be one and done. No, you need to visit multiple ones because, like I said, some of them have wait lists. They don't have a spot open. They have to go through this whole interview process. They may not accept your child. They have testing because I know my oldest son had to go through some testing before they officially allowed him to come in so they could see what level he was in. So there are different things you need to kind of get prepared for. And then on top of that, the paperwork. If you're missing some of the paperwork, if it's not apostilled, if it's not translated, like those are different steps you got to take.
Before getting here, if you know that you're going to get your kids in school, making sure that you have their documents translated in Spanish and apostilled or apostille. People pronounce it different. which is basically, I would consider the international notary, to make sure that they will be accepted.
And I believe we actually had to get some documents notarized here in Colombia. We did.
Really?
We did.
And see, I'm learning too, because my kids are not as old as Kelly's yet, and not in traditional school. So even with this, I've been learning a lot in the process.
We did. We had to get some documents notarized. So even though I had the apostille, I did not get the documents translated until we were here, because it has to be translated by an official translator in Colombia. So, you know, that was something we had to wait on, but it still took a little bit of time, right, to get that done. The notary, going to the notary, and that's a whole nother process too, because we're used to being able to go to a bank, tell them what we need. We need a document notarized. They ask a few questions, we get it done. Here it's a whole nother situation. You got to have fingerprints. You got to have, like, go to different people. It's a whole thing. So keep in mind, this is not going to be as streamlined as what you're used to. Okay.
Pack your patience.
Pack your patience.
Pack your parental patience, but you'll get through. You'll get through.
Yeah, and adjust your attitude and mindset, because this is not what you're going to be used to if you're coming from Canada, United States. You know, it's not going to be that. So adjust your attitude. You're in a different place, so you got to roll with what they are doing. Okay. And you know, you can have your complaints, but you might as well keep them to yourself, because this is what it is.
When in Rome.
Yep.
When in Rome.
Now let me switch over to the public school. Okay. And I've actually also homeschooled my children. So again, everybody knows that's an option. So in the transition between them getting out of the private school, I did do some homeschooling for a minute, until I found out that I was able to put them in public school. Now, this was something that I didn't even know was possible, because I'm thinking that because we aren't Colombians, we don't have residency here, I would not be able to put the kids in a public school. But I was wrong. And actually, our doctor, the doctor that Jay recommended to me, was the person who put me onto this. And he saw that the kids were not in school when he came over to do a visit with them. And he was like, they're not in school. I'm like, we're homeschooling. He was like, you know, you can put them like in public school. I went to public school and it's fine. And everything I had heard from like people was like, public school is not good, but the Colombian people don't even want to put their kids in there. Like, so I'm thinking in my mind that, for one, we can't even do it. For two, it's a bad place for them to go. It's like, that's not the best option. But I was wrong.
Do your research. When you do your research, you find out so many things.
I was wrong. So what we ended up doing, and I had my nanny help me now, because I'm not a Spanish speaker, and as Jay said, you need to communicate everything in Spanish. Even at the private school, that I went to, there was a translator there, so it wasn't like I was doing it all on my own. So this time I had my nanny help me. And she found the website for the Department of Education for Colombia, the Ministry of Education, I think is what they call it. And she was able to email one of the directors to say, hey, do you have any openings in, La Reles and yada, yada, yada. And we actually got a response back, which I was like, oh, we got a response back like within 2 days. Because, again, things don't move as fast as we're used to. And they were actually like, yeah, come on in and, we'll get you registered. Now I'm thinking, okay, we're going to go talk and we're going to go see the school, yada, yada, yada. No. So we went, met with the coordinator. So she was like, okay, this is the paperwork you need. Now I had already taken the paperwork I had. So one thing about the schools, and this is probably the same for the States, you have all this paperwork you got to give to the school. Well, when they are disenrolled, they give all that paperwork back to you. Plus, they have to give you a document to say that you paid the school off. It's okay for you to go to another school, because if you owe money to another school, and they won't give you the records, they won't give you anything for you to be able to enroll your child in another school. So just FYI. So they're like, okay,
that's news to me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they keep a track of like, okay, if you didn't pay them, you may not pay us. So then they're not going to let you go through until you get this document that's signed out from the previous school.
Now, are these original documents that you're supplying to them? Or
no. These are original documents. So the previous school, the private school, gave me the document.
Okay.
Original document. And then I just handed it over to the next school.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me kind of step back. So yeah, they asked for the paperwork. Now again, I'm thinking I'm gonna get a tour. I'm gonna meet some people. No. This is what you need. Come back tomorrow. Tomorrow? I gotta have all this tomorrow. Now, another thing about Colombia, things move slow until they move fast. Okay, you could be waiting all day long, all week long for something to happen, and then when they say, "Okay, we're ready for it to happen," boom, it's happening now. You gotta have this money now. We coming right now. You need to be here now. All right, so that's just how it is, and you gotta get adjusted to it. So I'm like, well, tomorrow I gotta get all this stuff together by tomorrow, and I gotta okay. Let me just do it. Let me do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went back the next day again, still thinking I'm gonna get a tour. I'm thinking I'm even at the school that they're gonna be going to, and I was not. I was at the main location. Yes, I was at the main location, and so I'm like, okay, you know, where's their classroom? Can we look at the school? And they're like, oh, they're not going to school here. This is the main location. They're going to be going to school there, you know, at this location. So I wasn't even able to tour the school, meet the teacher, none of that, because school was already in session.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it wasn't the same experience that I may have had. And I don't even know if I would have had it if school wasn't in session and I enrolled them. I'm not sure. But needless to say, I turned in the paperwork. Still thinking, okay, they can probably start next week or so because this is the middle of the week. No, they can start tomorrow. What? Tomorrow? So I got to get uniforms. I got to get school supplies. Like I don't even know what the school supplies are. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Again, it happens slow until it happens fast, right? Mm-hmm. So hurry up. Got to go get all this stuff. It's convenient, however, because the uniform place, there are plenty of uniform places, but the place that they get the uniforms from for this particular school is like right around the corner. So we were able to walk around the corner, get the school supplies. Get their uniforms. However, what if I ain't had the money for the stuff? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you always have to be prepared here. Mm-hmm. You always better make sure your money is in your bank and doing something because you got to do it right now, right?
Stay ready. You don't have to get ready.
You got to stay ready. So got everything done. I wasn't able to get their school supplies immediately. I think it took a day or two, maybe like over the weekend. But they had it by that next week. They had their school. But the school supply list was not as extensive
as the other school.
Mm-hmm. Nowhere near. And on top of that, I still didn't know how things work. So I'm thinking, you know, how we send their school supplies to school all at once. Like, here you go. It's all there. It stays at school. No. They want you to keep the school supplies at your home and only seeing what they need for that particular day or week.
Oh, okay.
So I had to learn, like for my youngest son. Now, this is not necessarily for my oldest. My youngest son is in kindergarten. My oldest is in 3rd grade. So for my youngest, they sent everything back and was like, okay, on a weekly basis, they'll send a document to say, this is what we're doing this week and this is what the kids need. So it'll say what their homework is, whatever they need to bring in, whatever supplies. Like it'll tell you what day to bring that on because they don't have enough room. And I had to learn this again. They don't have enough room to leave stuff at the school. So
and keep it safe.
It safe. So this is how it goes for the public school that my kids are in. They go half a day. So my youngest, the younger kids go in the daytime. So from 7 in the morning. Okay.
Because this is very important. This next piece, what you were about to say, because it impacts your life and your lifestyle.
It does.
I'll say that again.
So there's a schedule. The younger kids go in the morning. The older kids go in the afternoon. And this is the primary school. So this is K through 5. Okay. So my youngest is in kindergarten. He goes from 7 in the morning until 12 o'clock in the afternoon, basically. My oldest goes from like 12:15 to 5:15. Okay. Mm-hmm. 2 split schedules. So that means somebody's here at all times. I got to make sure somebody can get them on to the school bus or their transportation, get them off because they will not let them off unless an adult is there. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's some logistics. However, that's how it works. The school is free. I do have to pay for transportation. And as far as food is concerned, my youngest gets a snack. We have to fill out a form. He gets a free snack. My oldest, it seemed like it was hit or miss. I don't know if I didn't get the form or if there was something I was supposed to do, but because we started in the middle of the school year, so maybe there's something I missed. But some days he would get a snack, sometimes he wouldn't. So we would just put a snack in his bag just in case, he didn't happen to get a snack on that day. They don't get breakfast or lunch, so they eat breakfast, or my youngest eats breakfast at home, gets on transportation, goes to school, eats lunch at home. My oldest eats lunch at home, everything before he goes, and then he comes home, eats dinner. So all the meals are really eaten at home. So there are trade-offs. You pay less, because the only thing I'm paying for now is basically a uniform, a few school supplies. I didn't even have to buy books. And then transportation is really the monthly expense that I have for the public school. But they go half a day, so they're not gone all day. So it's not like I can focus and get things done like I want to.
And that could be a culture shock for people who are used to sending their children to school from this time to this time. All of their children are at school at this time. It doesn't work like that here. It's quite different. And you're staggering your children going to school. So it's a lot more planning and navigating to make sure that, especially if you don't have a vehicle, to get your primary school children to and from school.
And with the private school, they were there all day. They were pretty much gone for 10 hours because between pick up and drop off, that was a good 10 hours. They were gone. And I was like, ooh, thank you. I can get some stuff done. Now, somebody's always here. And so it's like I'm constantly juggling. And on top of that, I do still homeschool. So this is the other caveat, because this is a traditional school. They only speak Spanish. There's no English. Nobody is speaking English in the public school. So that's another thing you got to think about. I'm okay with it. My youngest does pretty well with Spanish. And he's still young, so he's still learning. So he's good, right? My oldest he was struggling. He was struggling because he has a little bit of Spanish. He's in Spanish class. However, to be in a classroom where everybody's speaking Spanish all day long, you trying to learn in Spanish, you got to take tests and you got to read. That was a little too much for him, right? So at this point, I have taken my oldest out of the public school, and we're actually going to send him on back to the United States to go to school for a year. But I'm good with that, and I'm okay with him not really learning much while he was in the public school, because he had that immersion of Spanish. So his Spanish has improved. It's just not at the level it needs to be for him to be able to learn
and keep up
at this point. So that was just kind of the decision I made to say, you know what, let's let him go back, because he's ready to go back to be with family anyway. So we're going to let him go back, go to school. I said for 1 year, but we're going to see how he does, because if by January, if he wants to come back and he feels like he's comfortable, I'm going to let him come back. So we'll just see. We'll see what happens. But that gives you a gist or an idea of the public schools, the private schools, the daycares, the different type of schools that are available, because there are a lot of schools here. A lot of schools. You have a lot of different choices. So it's just about doing your due diligence and really taking your time and finding the right school for you and your children.
Did you talk about the cost of private school?
No, I have not.
Okay.
So
and what that difference is, to kind of give people an understanding of what that looks like.
So I can give you a range. Now, this is not going to be exact, but private schools can range anywhere from 1 million pesos to 3 million pesos. And that's just the basic tuition.
Per child?
Per child. Basic tuition, that's not including your annual fee, your transportation, extra pay, like all the other things. Those are extra costs that you got to think about that I wasn't even aware of when I first put them into the private school, because I'm used to the States. I'm used to how they operate. So when they start hitting me with all these different fees, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is adding up. I thought I could do this relatively easily, but it added up to be more than my rent for the 2 kids. Let me just say that.
And that was 1 million to
3
million. And with the current conversion rate right now of the US dollar, that's per child, right?
Per child.
So per child, that would be anywhere from $270 to $800.
Yeah.
Per child. So depending on that gap between the 1 mil pesos to 3 mil pesos.
Yes.
So yes, it could be costly depending on what kind of school. And then that was just the tuition.
That was just the tuition. That is definitely something I was not expecting. That was a shock. Yeah, that was a big shock for me. And that is something I had to navigate. I think I'm okay now with the public school, and I'm actually comfortable with the homeschooling. So I still do both because they still need to command math and reading in English. Like that's important. So I do still homeschool a little bit when they come home. But yeah, I was not expecting that. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And if you have multiple kids, I have two, multiple kids, that's per child each fee. So you have to be ready to put that in your budget if you're deciding to put them in school. Or you could choose to do online school or homeschool from the States. There are plenty of parents out here who are doing that as well, right?
And for some people, that cost is probably a discount from what they're paying for private school back home in the United States. But for a new parent who I've never had to pay tuition until getting here, because I had my children outside of the country. They were born outside of the country. So even just the school system in general is new to me. But for someone who's paying probably two times, three times what that cost is back in the United States, they may be comfortable with that. But for someone who has their kid in public school back in the States and then they transition here wanting to put their children in private school, that's great, valuable information, because that's going to be a shift into and budget planning.
Oh yes,
definitely budget planning. So that's great,
because I did not I planned for school, but not as much as I was paying.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, hold on, we got to make some changes.
Right. Because people hear about the cost of living here and how reasonable it is, and the cost of living is, but some people don't factor in the families. We're talking about families here. The additional cost, depending on the type and the level of education you want your children to have, that's additional cost people may not even factor into their moving abroad.
Exactly. So I think that kind of gives you the gist of the schools as far as like the cost that you could be expecting, the fees, the types of fees, the different types of schools. Is there anything else you think we need to add in that we may have not mentioned?
You talked about the transportation. I think we covered a lot of things.
And let me just kind of talk a little bit about the cost of transportation. So just to give you an idea right now for the public school, which the public school is just a 30-minute walk, probably a 10-minute drive, right? I pay 260,000 pesos per child for transportation. I don't know.
A week?
A month.
Okay.
A month.
Okay.
I don't know what that breaks down to.
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
260. You keep talking.
260,000 pesos per child per month for transportation. That's to go to school and then be picked up and come back. Now, my children do have two separate vehicles. My oldest was going in a bus because there were more children in the afternoon. Of course, older children that were going to school. So he's in a little. It's not really a bus that you think about. It's more of a sprinter van.
But they consider that for public transportation for the students.
Bus.
There's no yellow bus.
No yellow
buses here. School buses here.
No. So it's a sprinter van. They fill it up with children. These are privately owned school bus companies. This is not like a district or anything like we're used to. These are like private people who have just said, okay, I bought a bus or I bought this and then I'm starting this business because this is a very entrepreneurial community or a culture. And, you contact them to set up transportation. You have to do it on your own. It's not through the school at all.
How does the safety with that work? Like how for you, was that a culture shock? Was that a shift for you?
Definitely a shift.
Because it's not a school bus. We're used to putting our children in these buses. And just to go back before you answer that question, the transportation, you said 260 mil pesos. Mm-hmm. That's about $70 per child a month for just transportation.
Right.
So 140 for your kids.
Yep.
Just for school. That's not even considering your
extracurriculars,
going out
entertainment. No, yes. That's a whole separate category for my budget. So,
if you can find a school that's walkable, kudos to you.
Yes.
But in this case, it's a little further. And let's talk about the transportation and how that adjustment was for you, because it looks different. So pause for the cause. We grew up in a culture and society where they said, stay away from the white van. Stay away from the white van.
Yes.
So for me, that's in the back of my psyche, because I see these white sprinter vans around but it'll say on the side, I think it'll say Escolar, which is like, that that's a school van, but still the way I'm socialized, like, that's, you stay away from the white vans in here because they don't have yellow school buses. How was that for you?
Interesting. So in their private school, they had transportation, and they were on a school bus, and they were on there together. But I was okay because they were together. Mm-hmm. So I knew my oldest, he had never really rode on a bus to school in the States unless they went on a field trip. So he was excited about even being able to ride to school in a little bus. Mm-hmm. And I was okay because I knew he was there and they would look out for each other. So it wasn't just, now they don't have car seats. They don't have booster seats. It's just your child sitting in the seat. I don't even know if they have seat belts in there. So that's Colombia. Like in general, like even getting into taxis, Ubers, ride shares, no seat belts, no car seats, no none of that. That's just how it is here. Think about the 80s in the United States where seat belts and car seats and none of that was like a big deal back then. That's how it is. You got to go back in time a little bit.
And some of your ride share will have seat belts, but some of them won't work.
So or you can't find it.
You may find some vehicles with seatbelts, but you're definitely not going to see a whole lot of car seats.
No. So I was okay with that one. Now this time when they had to be split apart. So my youngest goes in an actual car. So this is a person again, because everybody's individual entrepreneur. They have a car that they go pick up the kids that they have a contract with and take them to school. And me and my oldest still rides the bus because there are more kids in the afternoon. That was a little nerve-wracking because I'm just randomly putting my 5-year-old, because he was 5 at the time. I'm like, I'm putting him in a car with a stranger and I'm supposed to trust that this stranger gonna take him to school. It was a little bit nerve-wracking in that first day. I'm gonna be honest, but I was okay. I made it through once they got home, and I was watching the time. I was like, what time is it? What time are they supposed to be? Like, why is it taking so long? So yeah, but after that first couple days, I was fine with it. Again, I'm adjusting my mindset that this is how the culture is.
It's a different culture.
And also understanding that the culture here isn't like the United States when it comes to children. They treat children way different, like much more nicer, kinder, gentler. Like they don't want to harm children here at all.
I think I have only seen one time in public, and I don't know. Have you seen Colombian parents reprimand their children in public?
And I feel bad every time I have to, because I feel like every time I go out, I have to reprimand my kids, and
I've only seen it once.
I have not seen it at all. And I'm like,
and their kids usually have great behavior too. They usually have great behavior. So I need to find out what they're doing. But you're not, hey, stop. No. Like sometimes, I'm getting after my girls. They're young, 2 and 3. But I don't see a lot of public reprimanding of children. And I don't even see the need for it, though.
No.
That's the thing. I don't see the need for it. That was the thing I was going
to say. The children here are different. They're much more calm, much more laid back. They stay next to their parents. They're not running off and screaming and yelling. Like they're not doing. Mine do too. They're not doing all of that. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just the culture, how they raise them, because they're intergenerational, families. So there's always someone there to care and make sure the child is okay. Versus us, where we're usually by ourselves. It's just the parents with the children,
right?
And you don't have a lot of hands in the pot to help.
They have the village.
And
you see it when they go out. You see the intergenerational cultures, even the dogs and the pets. You see them from great grandparents, the parents, the children, the 3-month-old, plus the dog. You see them all out together. So the village is here.
Is here. Yeah. So that is another adjustment. That's kind of not really related to schools, but it is. My kids play rough because they're from the States, where the kids there are just more adventurous.
And they're boys. They're boys.
But they're still more adventurous. my boys will go to the playground, they climbing on top of the slides and doing it. Like none of the other kids are doing this stuff. It's just mine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, here we go. Get down, stop. Or, they're playing tag, but they tagging too hard. I mean, it's just, they're just more active, more, and rough
physical,
and physical. They're very much more physical than I've seen the kids here. I've seen the kids here play, but yeah, it's not to the level of
the way
that our kids play. So I definitely have to watch them. I have to remind them that, they have to be softer, gentler, stop screaming so much, all of the things. But they do still let the kids be kids. It's just the kids are different here. So another thing. So when it comes to school, that I can say, kind of just relating it, some challenges that the kids have had. Both of them have expressed that, the kids will hit them like this, because they speak this Spanish speaking kids, of course. They might do something to them, hit them, push them, kick them, or whatever. And then when it comes to my kids retaliating or hitting back or doing whatever, my kids get in trouble because they're not seeing the other kids, because of course they're the only expats, only foreign kids in the school. So they're going to get more attention. That's one thing. The other thing is, they don't speak fluent Spanish. So the Spanish speaking kids can go say whatever they need to say to the teacher, but mine can't necessarily always say that. My youngest
can articulate and advocate for themselves to the same degree.
To the same extent. My youngest can do more. However, it's still only to a certain extent. Gotcha. My oldest really wasn't. So that we were having some issues with that. So that's something that you might want to be mindful of as well. If you can get your kids in Spanish sooner versus later, that would be great. However, Spanish lessons and classes from afar are only going to do so much. They have to be immersed in the culture to really learn the lingo, the slang, how, they may say something in Spanish in Mexico, but it may be different in Colombia. You know what I mean? So you do have to give them grace when they get here, and understand if you do put them in a primarily Spanish speaking school, that there's going to be an adjustment period. And I'm going to tell you, maybe that adjustment period may need to be 6 months to a year for them to really be around Spanish speakers on a daily basis consistently, for them to pick it up, understand it, hear it, and can reply back and all of the things.
So that's really good. Really good. Interjecting the culture aspect as it relates to school, and especially for parents who have older children who have already had a school setting back home, and how that adjustment may be coming into a different culture in another city like Medellín. That's really good.
I definitely feel like my oldest struggled because he was in a traditional setting in the United States and knows what that looks like. He didn't put as much effort into trying to learn the Spanish like he needed to and pick it up like he needed to, versus my youngest, who basically he was in preschool in the States. So this is really his first experience going to an actual school. So he just kind of grabbed it and was like, okay, this is now normal to him.
He was a sponge already to just soak it in.
Versus the adjustment, we don't do it like this in the States. This is, or whatever. So keep all of those in mind. Each child is different. Every child is not going to acclimate like you think they would. I know I had a vision for mine, like, they're going to go, they're going to have this great experience, they're going to learn this language, yada, 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 which, yes, they have. But again, one has done better as far as grabbing the culture and the language and all of the things. One has done way better than the other. So it's just kind of like, okay, well, how do we pivot? How do we make this adjustment? So to do what's best for him and make sure his education is on point as of right now, that's why I'm like, okay, he's going to go back for a minute and then come on back when he's ready to come back, because I don't want him to be unhappy. And I know we have to make decisions for our children. However, we do still need to listen to their needs and try to do, of course, what we feel like is best for them.
Shout out to your village back home too.
Yes,
that's able to take in your other son while he readjusts.
Yes,
and get the learning that he needs. So shout out.
To your family. Shout out to the village in the States.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's all we have going on. I just heard the horn from my little one, so he's coming home from school right now.
Yes. That's that half day.
That half day situation.
Yeah, so we talked about daycares, we talked about public schools and private schools and acclimating to the payments of tuition versus private schools and public schools and transportation, all of the things. So if there's anything that we did not cover today that you have a question about in terms of public schools, private schools, daycares, put it in the chat. Yep. Put it in the comments. Put it in the comment section, and we'll see if we can respond to those and answer any questions that you may have. And we also have
a 90-day free 90-day checklist, move to Medellín, I should say, checklist. So if you are interested or even thinking about moving to Medellín and you want some further information, we have this 90-day checklist that will help you navigate like the paperwork you need to gather before you leave, the steps you need to take in order to get here from either the States or Canada, anywhere you are. But just a checklist to kind of help you out to know, okay, I need to get this, boom, 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 at this time to make it as smooth as possible for you. So if you are interested in that free 90-day checklist to move to Medellín with your family, the link for the description, or the link for that, is in the description. That's what I want to say. So click the link in the description. Put your information in, you will receive the 90-day checklist. We're also working on a ebook, which is a resource guide that will give you a plethora of information, including the links and different information about schools, housing, all of those things. They're going to be in this ebook.
It's a master guide.
So if you sign up for the 90-day checklist, we'll email you and let you know when the guide is available. And if you don't, we'll just let you know here on the videos, our lives, and you can go pick it up when it is ready. Okay? All right, so I guess we're going to wrap this on up because I have a feeling that my youngest is probably going to come in here in a minute and bust in because he loves to do that when I'm on a video. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye. We will see you next Friday. And thank you for watching Mamas Beyond the Matrix.
Like and subscribe.
Bye.